I've discovered there's a whole slew of videos of people who are new to the Karen Read phenomenon. And that's what it is, right? It's a phenomenon. And I remember when I started paying attention a year ago, I was like, my mind is blown. I cannot believe this is happening in real life. The clips of these people watching this trial and learning these details for the first time, I can't believe this colossal train wreck. How is this happening? Wait, what? Half of their brain is shutting down because they cannot believe that this shit is happening, and there's zero logic. Like there's nobody. And baby, I feel you. Let me tell you, you go back and watch my playlist from last year, the first 4 or 5 videos, I was like, WTF. Every single video, I was like, Anyway, let's get to this trial. So the second Karen Read trial just started a couple days ago, and I'm going to go into that. I'm going to make another video in a minute to talk about the first couple of witnesses. But there was something said during Hank Brennan's opening statement that gave me another aha moment. There's a video a couple of videos ago where I was saying, isn't it weird that Jen McCabe pulled up to her sister's house where there's a dead body on the lawn and she never runs up to the door, never goes in the house to make sure her sister's okay? That seems sketch to me, right? Like this was all normal. But there was something that Hank Brennan said, and it occurred to me that I'd asked this question once upon a time in a previous video. So we were talking about Brian Albert not going out on the front lawn, which to this day is one of the biggest mysteries, to put it nicely, of this case, right? And I remember doing this video saying, like, how does he not wake up, right? You've got 3 women on the lawn, one who is reported to be screaming and running around like the Tasmanian devil, apparently confessing to murder, allegedly. You've got a minimum of 4 police officers. You've got 2 to 3 paramedics. So there's at least 5, 6 vehicles in front of the house. The dog, you would think, Chloe, would be barking her ass off. McCabe was asked that question in the last trial. Jackson's like, so you ran in the house and where was Chloe, kind of thing. Both him and his wife's phones are ringing nonstop because Jen McCabe and then pretty soon Matt McCabe, I forgot to add him. There's another person, there's another car. Anyway, are all out on the lawn trying to call them, which I'm sure they're not the only people calling. Brian Albert said on the stand that he intentionally sleeps with his phone in his bed because of their kids. Him and his wife, they sleep with their phones really close by. So if there's an emergency, like a dead body on your lawn, you'll hear the phone ring. In all that chaos, he didn't wake up. And one of the things I asked in a previous video was, how did he not hear the sirens? How did the sirens of those cop cars and that ambulance not wake him up? And a bunch of people came in the comments and they're like, well, they didn't use the sirens, Candy, because, it was 6 o'clock in the morning and it's in a neighborhood. And when Jen McCabe called 911, she said, I think he's almost gone. Like she gave the impression that it might be too late. So I thought, well, okay, I guess they didn't use the sirens. They just pulled up to the house and they didn't use the sirens until Hank Brennan's opening statement yesterday. Brennan tells the jury, the call comes in at 6:04 a.m. or whatever. And he's like, the paramedics, and he says, cardiac arrest. This is one of the most urgent calls you can go on. They grab their bags. They're so prepared. They're ready to go save a life. They don't know whose life they're saving, but boy, they're prepared. The sense of urgency is off the charts. They get in that ambulance and he's talking about how they're having a hard time. They're sliding in the snow and ice and there's other cars and they can barely see. High sense of urgency, cardiac arrest, one of the most serious calls you can go on. There's a blizzard, there's other cars, they're all over the road. Of course they'd have their lights and sirens on because they would want people to see them coming in a snowstorm. So the lights, at minimum, the sirens why wouldn't they be on? If it was that urgent, why wouldn't they have the lights and the sirens going the entire way from the Canton Fire Department all the way to 34 Fairview? Now I understand once they worked on John and they got him in the back of the vehicle, they probably did realize, okay, he's gone. So maybe there weren't sirens on the way back, but there sure as shit should have been sirens on the way there. See, this is something they won't want to talk about because they did use sirens. Then it makes Brian Albert look like an even bigger liar than we already know him to be. But if they didn't use the sirens, then how can we argue in court that they had the gravest sense of urgency, that they were rushing to save a life in cardiac arrest? And then another thing, because people are asking this all the time too, is when Jen called 911, and she said, You know, there's a guy in the snow. She makes it seem like it's a stranger. Like maybe some poor homeless man was out, you know, fell down in the snow and died of hypothermia in my sister's yard. What a tragedy, right? She never says my friend's boyfriend. It's John O'Keefe. It was 4 police officers, I think 2 or 3 paramedics got to the scene very, very quickly. I'll give them credit for that. But you know what Jen McCabe should have said? And she would know this because she's in a cop family. You call 911 and you say, officer down at 34 Fairview. They send the fucking cavalry. Lights, sirens, half the police force, fire trucks. Everybody would have been there. But she says, there's some guy passed out on the lawn. Who knows? Could be serious. But I think he's already dead. And I know that. Wink, wink, allegedly, because I was the one that Googled Haas Long to die in the cold 3.5 hours earlier. None of it makes sense. The advantage we have in the second trial is that we all watched the first trial. And then, by the way, we all know the jury testimony. We all know what the feds have found. I get it that the jury is a little isolated, and the jury's only going to hear what the jury's going to hear, and that's really frustrating because that's what happened in the first case. There were just so many things we knew that the jury never heard. So Hank Brennan is going to try and spin this, and all of us are watching it going, wait a minute, that's not what they said in the last trial. And Jackson's doing a really nice job of calling out the lies. By the way, also, Boozy Beauty, go watch her video. She did a video, I think yesterday, about the 3 paramedics and how their stories changed. Like, she's got the whole timeline. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. I'm going to keep making videos, keep coming back.